Spring is upon us. Not just the season of the year, but the Palestinian spring. If Western media reporting from the last few days is to be believed, and of course it is not to be believed. But yes, Palestinians have taken to what used to be streets to protest against Hamas's rule of Gaza and demand um, the removal of Hamas. Now, we're going to get a bit into what this is, who these are, does it matter? Well, actually, let's start with that. Yeah. So for me, I don't buy it, but more importantly, if Palestinians, can build a time machine, go back to October 6th and get rid of Hamas, we can talk. Um, Now we can't, because these protests, whatever they are, they didn't happen on October 7th. Something else happened on October 7th with Gazans taking to the streets, right? They weren't protesting against Hamas then. They weren't protesting against Hamas on the 8th or on the 9th of October. It took them a year and a half of war. And still, there is nothing here that says, look, we are wrong in how we do things, and like we're morally wrong and we're barbarians. That is not being said. What's being said is we're uncomfortable living in tents, and as far as I'm concerned, that's good. Good. Stay uncomfortable. You've earned it. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginzberg. I'm joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel, I know you've already given some of your thoughts on the protests, but has anything changed?
Yeah, you actually took my line with the Arab Spring because that's what I wanted to use. Basically, the Arab Spring is coming late in Gaza, since those happened in like early 2010s, and Gaza. Yeah, the Palestinians were left out of from the Arab Spring. They really, they didn't stand up. Now again, even when it comes to Arab Spring, it's not like that resulted in pretty much any meaningful change in the Middle East. For the most part, the same kind of philosophy stayed in power, the same kind of authoritarianism pretty much remained. And I think that's something similar that might be happening in Gaza. Again, this does seem like there are protests happening that we haven't seen before, but it really does seem like it's specifically, and Alex would probably be best to talk about this, but from the specific families that are in Gaza. Now, that I never like to use examples from video games too much because it's sort of infantilizing. But actually, it exactly reminds me of one specific kind of game, and it's the one that takes place in Middle Ages when, yeah, some of the lords stand up to the king, but it's not to establish any sort of like freedom, any sort of free society. It's just to get a different guy in charge because, the keys to power are no longer happy and they need somebody different. And it really does seem like this is what might be happening here. People pretty much, Hamas is no longer fulfilling the role that it was at first elected in and then stayed in power for. Basically, to push anti-Israel sentiments, to fight against Israel, but also most importantly to preserve lives or relative standard of living in Gaza, or preserve the cause, basically, so they are there for another day to continue fighting against Israel. If they all get wiped out, they can no longer kill Jews, and that is not that is not prosperous in the Palestinian terminology. And we'll have to see what will continue from here. But most importantly, this shouldn't change anything when it comes to Israeli policy. Keep going forward. Even if they completely overthrow and stand up to Hamas, it's too late. An example I would bring is during World War II, there were Operation Spark and Operation Valkyrie, basically attempts to kill Hitler. And the people that would potentially took over, their plan was to basically keep some of the territory that Germany gained during World War II, such as Austria, potentially Czechoslovakia, and maybe even some parts of Poland. No, you're not. It's too late for that. It's too late to stand up now. You are getting occupied. You are. You unconditional surrender is the only thing you'll get, and you'll suffer the consequences of not standing up sooner. And that is something that I think should happen in Gaza. Occupation should happen. Maybe, they might be a bit more understanding circumstances if they do manage to rescue some of the hostages, and I mean specifically Palestinians, basically rescue hostages from Hamas and stand up to Hamas. There might be, potential. I mean, if it truly is that people have enough of the ideology that Hamas is, they should want Israel to come in. They should want Israel to have some say in Gaza, to root out all the Hamas remnants and to help them really restore, some kind of governance that they would potentially want.
Yeah, and by the way, for somebody who doesn't like to use video games examples, you use quite a lot of them. But yeah, for people who actually want to live in Gaza, people in Gaza who actually want to live, they have already gotten out, or all they're doing is thinking of how they get out. Like that is what people who want to live do at this point, and they would have done this long before October 7th. So that's one aspect of trying to figure out who is here. And by the way, if you watch the media, I heard actual lies from reporters saying like this is a on the BBC there was a report where the reporter was asked, what is behind this, and the guy said it's a popular uprising, which we know for a fact it's not. So let's get to that. Thank you, Bulmus, for the super chat. Bulmus says this is a Hamas ploy, not anti-Hamas. The defense minister says Israel will take territory if we don't get hostages back, and Gazans protest the same day. I don't think it's a Hamas ploy. I do think it's first. So first of all, we know there was a call being put out by the clans in Gaza. This is very much how Arab society, at least in Israel and among the Palestinians, works. I mean, there are families that control things. And at some point earlier in this war, we talked about Netanyahu's plan to have those families run Gaza after Hamas. So, yeah, these are not, but again, these are clans that were allowed to operate under Hamas, were allowed to continue to exist. So keep that in mind when we look at these as potential peace partners. No, they're not. They're just, again, maybe it is the fact that Israel said they're going to take territories and take them permanently. Maybe it's the fact that fighting is resumed and is supposedly a bit, a bit stronger on Israel's part. It might get a little bit stronger, but um, yeah, this has never been about. We don't want to be the people who did October 7th because they still do. They still are, and nothing in the last few days has proven otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to come up with an example of this sort of dynamic that happens anybody else, and the sort of closest thing that is coming to that is the Orthodox Church in Russia. In some cases during the Soviet Union, it was some sort of opposition to the leadership, but at some point they realized Orthodox Church is a really good way to control the population. Really easy. It's much easier to cooperate with them and to sort of take over rather than trying to root out them because they are religious. And I think that's something similar that is happening with the families and clans in Gaza. Basically, for Hamas, they are, in a sense, opposition. They are something separate from them that can sort of threaten their power, like what's happening right now. But they also give them a shortcut towards control. Basically, keep the families happy, keep the clans happy, and now you control the population. So again, just because these families, and that doesn't make these clans or families good. That makes them incredibly pragmatic. Basically, they would align themselves, like the Orthodox Church, they would align themselves with Putin if it means getting certain advantages, if it means getting certain privileges. And that is not something we should ever want to sort of bring back. Because the opposite would still happen. That would also mean Israel, or sort of Israeli law, would never fully be in control in Gaza. It would always go through the families. It would always have that sort of grasp on it. Someone says controlled opposition. It's kinda. I think it's something a bit different. It's more of a key to certain parts of population. Uh, but yeah, you could say in some ways it is similar to controlled opposition.
I have to say, anybody who's looking at this optimistically, thinking, okay, yeah, they've had enough, now they want peace or something like that. Remember, this is well, what I already said, that it's not, it's not any opposition to their ways. It's just the opposition to their current situation. But also, again, if we accept these clans, we're accepting the culture, and it wasn't Hamas, purely Hamas, that did October 7th. It was Palestinian culture. It was the Palestinian people doing what they've been taught from the moment they were born to do. And like we said, October 7th wasn't unique in the sense that everything they did on October 7th they'd done before. It was unique in its scale on that given day. So yeah, the Palestinians have not changed their ways just because they're uncomfortable, and destruction of their culture to the core is a necessary is something without which you cannot have peace. Now, again, destruction of the culture um, and removal of the threat would mean Palestinians can no longer live in Gaza, and this is true, of course, of the people protesting as well. I really hope nobody's buying this too much. Let's see. We have a clip from one of the reports that, again, the reports that I've seen from the media are not good. They're only good in kind of telling you that it's happening, but they're not even clear in telling you what's happening, and they're not. And when they don't know what's happening, as we know with how they report on death tolls in Gaza, they will tell you something anyway. So keep that in mind. But yeah, let's watch that clip.
But listen to this father preparing to bury his daughter.
She was 4 years old. It's not Hamas that's dying, it's the children. You, Netanyahu, you're not killing Hamas. You're killing children. Kill Hamas. We would be happy if you did.
All right. So, no, you kill Hamas because they're doing this in your name. And if you don't, then stuff like this will happen. And it is absolutely Hamas that is responsible for your child's death. So this is still the Palestinian sentiment. Like, we are victims of everybody. And now they're also victims of Hamas. So no, I, again, am not buying it, and I don't think anybody should. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Yeah, Daniel.
Did you read Bulmus's super chat?
Yeah, I believe I did and answered it.
Oh, I must have missed it. That's weird. Yeah, I mean, that tells you something. The way he spoke about tells you the fact that this is not over. They still do not recognize that they've made a mistake on October 7th. They still considered Hamas, or they try to say that Hamas is something separate from us. No, Hamas is a government that represents you. You chose to not stand up against it. You chose to not get out of Gaza at any point. There was still support, and there is still support. There is still support in Gaza for Hamas. Again, even these protests, I believe they are happening only in 3 towns, 3 cities, and now they are happening second day in the row. We'll see if it spreads, but it does seem sort of it's happening just in the south so far. And it has to be recognized that no, there needs to be something needs to change. The fact, like, you had a chance to establish the government, and I think yeah, I have a specific quote from someone from the Nusayrat refugee camp, a 25-year-old saying, "We want elections. I want to live the experience of elections. We want to change the exhausting and tragic reality and build our future. Gaza has been completely destroyed and no one has benefited from the war except for destruction." But the fact is, there is no alternative being proposed. There is no alternative to Hamas that they are putting out. The only alternative is seen as the Palestinian Authority, which is not a real alternative. It's the same kind of thing, just maybe a little bit less terroristic or less genocidal currently. It was in the past, and they are not doing anything. And again, this idea that elections are some sort of like a miracle cure that will fix all the problems. No, they're just a different kind of way of deciding who's gonna be in control. But they do not have some sort of miracle cure. And again, Hamas was elected, and even you could say, well, it was elected a long time ago. Well, the fact is, they didn't need another elections. Nobody is calling for another. Nobody has been calling for another elections in Gaza since. Neither for in Gaza nor in the West Bank. Mahmoud Abbas has been a so what was the term he was elected for? 4, 5, or 6 years, and he's like 20 years into that term again. And the fact is that they just couldn't care for elections.
I mean, when you have elections and you vote for totalitarians and then you don't get another elections, I don't know what's like what you're surprised by. I think the Palestinians would feel more oppressed if they had another election. But that quote you read, no one has benefited from the war. Who was that?
It's Samir Saud, a 25-year-old from the Nusayrat refugee camp.
Yeah. If anybody tries to do another October 7th from Gaza at this moment, they will fail, Samir. So, yes, some have benefited from the war. In the last couple of days, there have been some rockets from Gaza, from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And it kind of highlights how when you have rockets, it's kind of a rare thing now. And it shouldn't happen at all, but it's yeah, people have benefited from the world has benefited from the war. The Palestinians are weaker than they were, not as weak as they should be, but weaker than they were, and that is a good thing.
Well, just to quickly jump in, they did benefit from the war. Palestinian state was recognized by many European nations after October 7th. Palestinian cause, or whatever you want to call it, did benefit from October 7th so far on international stage. The fact is that Israel, in many cases, has been isolated. During Biden administration, many of the sort of imports imports from USA were stopped. Israel, I mean, there is arrest warrant for technically, I guess Netanyahu is not the head of state. I don't know if he is because there is a president. But basically, the highest real office that has power, he pretty much is not allowed to travel in the world because there is a arrest warrant on him, and he can pretty much only travel to like USA and few other countries across the world because of the warrant. The fact is that Israel has suffered tremendously on the international stage, and Palestinian cause has benefited tremendously. That's what Sinwar said. He said, dying people, dying children are good. They help the Palestinian cause.
Bonnie says, do they want to give up UNRWA handouts or martyrs pay? Well, we haven't heard anything about that. By the way, they don't even have to give up UNRWA handouts. I don't care if they, take a sandwich when offered. But we didn't hear about this father, whether he sent his children or wants to send his children to be educated in a school where from the age of 0, they're told the Jews are pigs and they have to do everything. And there's nothing more glorious than a death as a martyr while killing Jews. So, yeah, none of that was heard there. And again, that's how I look at this. I don't buy it. There's a very good tweet that I want to read out about this that I agree with. I'll put it this way. If I was writing it, the wording might be a bit different, but also I could not have written it this well. So yeah, this is Noam Magid, Israeli journalist who I retweeted this tweet from, when is it? 2 days ago. Gazans, let me tell you exactly what I think about your little protest against Hamas, and I will say it loud and clear. I don't believe you. I don't buy your performance. I don't forgive you, and I never will. I don't care that you suddenly remembered you want to live, that all of a sudden you don't want people to die. Until the day I die, I swear I will remember how you invaded the homes of my brothers and sisters, how you raped, butchered, kidnapped, and looted. I will never forget and never forgive how you celebrated in the streets, how you lynched my people. You are all monsters. collaborators. You hid hostages. You cheered as Jewish children were placed in coffins. Mark my words, until my last breath, hell is not enough for you. There are no innocents in Gaza. I think that is a perfectly, near perfectly worded statement, and I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Something needs to happen, and that's what I said at the start. Yeah, this is nice thing to see. Let's see where it goes from now on. But the fact is, at some point, you commit such things that there is no redeemable thing. I mean, even if you take on sort of like an individual level, something like intentional murder, like premeditated, that is something that you cannot really or very hardly can recover from. And when it gets to the Hamas level, the fact that civilians have breached the border to go kill, as you said, kill, rape, kidnap hostages, then hit them in their homes, what can you do to restore that? There is nothing. The only thing you can do is acknowledge what you have done and say, there is nothing, we can do, and Israel should occupy, and maybe our children can live in a freer state. But we are done, and that it's not like I'm expecting really that to happen, because obviously it's the amount of what that kind of mentality would require wouldn't make October 7 happen. If people had that kind of introspection about their own actions, they wouldn't commit October 7. The only kind of people who would do something like that are the people who do view it as just, do view it as this is the right thing to do. We are doing the right thing, and you cannot recover from that.
Yeah, and also this is why denazification is not my top choice here. First of all, we're forgetting that Germany as a society was nowhere near as bad as the Palestinians. I mean, one basic thing that they had that the Palestinians didn't until maybe 2 days ago was opposition. Opposition that risked its life, as you mentioned. People, whatever other views they had, risked their life to get rid of Hitler. To try to get rid of Hitler, to try to get rid of the Nazis, to try to help the victims of the Nazis get away. Not a single Palestinian has taken the, I don't remember how many millions of dollars bounty for any information about the whereabouts of the hostages. Now, we know of what?
5 million.
5 million. Yeah, 5 million and safe passage out of Gaza. We know from hostages who have been released or rescued that in some cases, in many cases, hostages are held by civilians in their homes. Their neighbors certainly know, but in some cases, they're being treated as it's basically like a museum. Like people come and look at the Israeli hostages. So many thousands of Palestinians have that kind of information and choose not to get, again, not a single person. So yeah, denazification of Gaza would cost many lives of Israelis, would probably not be done right. Ship them off to some island in Indonesia and let them denazify themselves. And I think sending Gazans off is a maybe too generous prize for them, but that is as generous as I'm willing to be. They don't want Hamas rule. They can go there and supposedly not have Hamas rule.
Yeah, I mean, this again, this idea of basically you lose a war and then some people, get removed either willingly or unwillingly from that land. It's not a new thing. It's something that has happened. It's something even the good countries, I think, do. When Israel was founded, that was something that was done. Arabs have decided that they do not want the Israeli state and decided to declare war against it. And some of them paid for it. That's why you don't start war against another nation. That's why you don't choose this kind of line, because the consequences are you are risking all of your wealth, all of your property, the lives of your families, the lives of your own when you start a war against another nation. And you will pay the consequences of that. And again, Yeah, I mean, in some ways, as you say, the idea that they would get out is sort of like a almost like redeeming, like they is actually, like a better alternative for them. Like when the Syrian civil war started, millions of them fled. Many of them went to Europe, and some people are talking about them going back, but why would they want to go back? Why would anybody really want to go back after you come to the West? Why would we want anyone to live in these sort of cultures or sort of societies? Eradication of this sort of philosophy, and I don't mean by individual killing every single person who believes in this sort of philosophy, but eradicating from the top down, basically eradicating by stopping it, by again, what we listen to, what we hear from Palestinians, it's still not the rejection of philosophy that made Hamas possible. It's just we are suffering and we do not want to suffer, but there is no introspection on what caused that suffering. It's just they just say, well, Hamas attacked Israel or Israel responded harshly, but that's not really what is the right core of it. It's the philosophy that is like founded on mysticism, is founded on like complete hatred of success, complete hatred of Jews next door.
Yeah, Bonnie points out, Trump ignores all this when he talks about Trump Gaza. I'm guessing she means the fact that, it's a reward for Palestinians, and it is the way he talked about it. He said it's a hellhole, and Gaza is, and they'll live somewhere much nicer. It's for their own good. That's not a good thing. Again, you are rewarding the people who started a war. It's not as rewarding as if you give them the Palestinian state that they claim to want, and that other countries have decided to recognize. But yeah, Palestinians living comfortably elsewhere is not what I'm thinking about when I think, okay, this needs to happen. It's Palestinians no longer doing Palestinianism, as in killing Israelis. That's what needs to become a thing of the past, and let's hope it does. And let's certainly not buy a year and a half after October 7th the fact that Palestinians, feel some discomfort. They don't want this. They're ready to get rid of Hamas. First of all, you know, to quote The Rock, it doesn't matter what you people want. At this point, it doesn't matter. You have, yeah, I also try to not use too many wrestling references, and
It's good.
working out for me as well as in the video games. But yeah, no, it doesn't matter. This is what Palestinians want should not be what Israel thinks. Okay, what should we do now? It is how do we make sure that Palestinians can no longer kill Israelis? Parting thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, occupation needs to happen in Gaza. That is the only way out. Israelis need to go back into Gaza. There needs to be some actual, like, you cannot sort of do this kind of like occupation from afar. Just build like some towers across Gaza where nobody is, and deal with things when something happens. They need to embed themselves in the population. The Palestinians need to feel the presence. They need to feel that Israelis are not going out. This is the new way of living. You wanted Hamas out. Hamas is out, but we are staying. And until something changes, in your kids will have a future. You will have a much better future. I mean, again, whenever I look at the comparisons in GDP, I mean, Palestinian state, whatever kind of thing that is like such a small thing that there is not enough work in Gaza, despite it being such a small economy. Palestinians are going to work in Israel when they want to actually work. Well, I mean, not now, but before October 7th.
The Light Life says, just when I thought we could get through one 30-minute section without people losing their objectivist marbles about POTUS. Look, when we talked about this plan, I said this is the best, and I still believe that. It's the best presidential plan for the Middle East we've ever heard. That's not saying much because previous plans were Oslo, Camp David, disengagement. I don't think that's a U.S. I think that's all on Ariel Sharon, but certainly encouraged by the U.S. So within that context, well done, to Trump. But yeah, we will criticize people when they say things that are wrong. His idea that this should be for Gazans is wrong. This should be for Israelis, the victims of Gazans. Those are the people who matter in this context. So that's how it should be looked at. And yeah, as a general statement, just other than this and a few other things that Trump does, he is terrible. So we will keep talking about that as is needed, and we will praise whatever good is done. Hope that he doesn't get too much of what he wants to get done, and yeah, we will continue to cover him objectively.
Yeah, just to mention on this kind of like partisanship, I mentioned Biden earlier in this episode, who is no longer president because of something he done in the past. Yes, we will again. Both presidents are absolutely terrible for America, and the last few presidents have been terrible for America. Nothing changes. The fact that someone is marginally better by like 1 point out of 1,000 doesn't make it better. And even if Trump was much better figure, we should still criticize it. They are politicians. They should be perfect. We should expect more. We should always want more. We should never sort of excuse something they do. We should never sort of be like, well, okay, they've done enough or something. They are supposed to work for us.
When we criticize Trump, we get a bunch of TDS in the chat. When you criticized Biden, did you get BDS? Or
No, because obviously criticizing Biden is the right thing to do, and criticizing a god emperor is delusional.
well, criticizing Biden is the right thing to do because he has earned it. So has Trump. And yeah, well, we'll continue this, I'm sure, pretty much every day for the next nearly 4 years. There is no reality show today, as you may have noticed, since we've gone on for a while with a daily objective. But there is one tomorrow. There is also a daily objective tomorrow. We hope you join us there. We'll see you then.